Basically, what we're going to do is go through like what were some of my best and worst performing reels and carousels. I'm just doing Instagram because it's like easiest for me from like a scroll through and see what's performing perspective. And it's also where I've been focused in the last year. So I think that's like fair to say like this is the place I've been putting my energy. Like, let's look at that. Yeah. And then we're going to talk like what did the best, what did the worst, why. I mean, obviously, it's all a guess to a certain extent, and it's also an informed guess, especially when you're looking at like overall trends. It's not like one post where you're like, I mean, could that have just been this or this or this? But it's like overall, it's probably this. So that's kind of what I want y'all to walk away with too. Here for the data, yes. Um, because ultimately, I think seeing it in other people is also really helpful. I feel like sometimes doing this with our own content is harder, right? Because it feels so much more personal. We're so much more kind of like attached to it. We understood like the thought behind it. Like some of this for me was funny because I sometimes what I think is going to pop and what pops are very different things. And so that can be confusing in your brain. And you're like, well, I thought this one was going to be like one of my best performing ones. And I like barely even paid attention to this one. And it, right. So that helps. But again, sometimes seeing it through someone else's lens is so much easier because there's just less of that. You have less context, it's less personal. You guys are probably going to see things I didn't even see because it's mine. So feel free to like share that in the comments if you're like, hey, but also have you thought about it like this? Because that might be it too. Here for that. Rip it apart. I don't care. And then there's one other thing I want to say on that. Mm, oh, I know. Keep in mind, when we're talking about best performing and worst performing, it's a little more complicated in my business because it's not like I can attribute it to an immediate sale because that's just not how my business works, right? It's not like I'm saying like, oh, this one performed the best because it got us 5 people buying. That's not how one-on-one goes for us. And so when I'm looking at best performing, I'm looking at stuff like overall, this got a lot of like likes, engagement, shares, saves, blah, 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 right? Um, because to me, like, obviously that's what we're after in some ways with content. It doesn't mean likes are everything. They're obviously not, but it doesn't mean they're nothing either. Like they are synonymous with like more people are seeing this, more people are engaging with it. I'm also looking at reach, etc. So I pulled different ones. Like I didn't pull only the ones that had the highest reach or only the ones that had the highest likes, just for context. It's a mix. So we'll go through it and see. Hey, Emma. Yes, you love the data. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share and I'm going to pull up posts and share thoughts on them. Um, I was going to like drop the links for them, but I feel like that is so wildly unhelpful for you because like it's not like you're going to navigate back and forth. So anyway, I'm just going to pull it up. Um, Let me do that in 1 second. And oh, while I do that, just a reminder that you cool, is that working? Yep. Just a reminder that if you make any comment today, you are entered to win a $100 gift card. Hey Michelle, hey Anna. Yeah, any and all comments as a thank you for being here and listening to me blab on about this. Okay, I'm gonna try to like jump back and forth too between like your comments and this, but like I got a lot of moving parts here because I also have notes. There's a lot going on. Okay, so let us get started. Okay, so let's just start with like what was the most views I got on something last year, and it was this one. Has 10,000 likes. I think it had like over 2 million views. And the interesting thing about this one is that technically it was like best performing in terms of probably like likes, views, etc., like that. But it was also by far the most misunderstood one that I did. When the thing was I didn't want to be a mother to someone I didn't give birth to. I was talking about my ex-husband. I even led with like me when someone asks about my divorce. But it like went a little bit sideways and it found some people who said I was like harming adoptive families or like just like once it got, so this is kind of what happens, right? Like my core audience like knows they've been through a divorce. It made a lot of sense to them. A lot of people were like, yeah, I get it, whatever. Then it gets bigger and bigger. And once it goes to like 2 million people, of course they all don't get this. Of course they have their own lens. Of course they don't know me. Of course it's coming from a different perspective. But I feel like it's really helpful to see things like this because number one, the controversy, exactly. The way people misunderstood just goes to show most people don't read the caption. I think that is a very valid point. And by the time they're like activated around it, they don't even care about the caption. Like a lot of people were saying to other people in the comments, like, did you even read the caption? And one person was even like, yes, but at that point, she'd already done the damage kind of thing. I can't remember exactly how it was said, but it was something like that. So I feel like it's just like, this is the stuff that is going to happen if you want it to go further, right? This is the stuff that's going to happen if you want your reach to extend out beyond like, your little pocket of like people that already know you. So I think this is just helpful to see. Did this do a lot for my business? Yes and no, right? Like, I think a lot of people felt really connected with me. I had a few people reach out to me about this idea of like participating in this dynamic of mothering. I think I started some really beautiful conversations. Um, was it the thing that got like, 50 new people on my wait list? No, right? But overall, like I'm happy with this and I think it did well. I just think it's like one of those things where you have to see like if you really want to go bigger, part of going bigger is being misunderstood, is when it goes outside of your network, everybody has their own lens that you can't control, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I had a reel that went viral and people had so many feelings about. Clearly, none of them read the caption when they angrily commented. Totally. Felicia said, makes so much sense. I feel like this is the trade-off with true virality. So interesting to see, but it still seems like a win. Yeah, exactly. Like I know, like this one was easy for me because I know I'm not harming adoptive families. Do you know what I mean? Like I know that's not a thing. I know that I did everything I could to provide clarity there. And so like to me, it's still worth it. Like I'm like, okay, like of course it's gonna happen. Another post I had that had gone like way over 1 million was about paying off student loans for our nanny. Everybody had a thought, everybody had an opinion. I don't give a shit because like I feel good about that exchange like in my life and with our nanny. And so like some of it you just have to be like whatever, it's worth it to like be able to put myself out there in that way to be able to like get that reach. But a few people misunderstand me like it, like this is like literally just how it works. Chrissy said I would have been shitting my pants to be so misunderstood, but I'm working on it. I still so my flavor of, we all have our flavor of like what's your triggered responses. My flavor is I want to go tell them all why they're fucking wrong, just to be transparent. Like I want to be like, you're a moron, you didn't even read the caption, like get over yourself kind of thing. um and so like sometimes my work is to just not do that. Like I just was like, oh, the comments are a dumpster fire, I shall step back. But sometimes if you're like really like working on being misunderstood, it could be an edge to be like, I'm actually gonna go comment back to these and like find my power there and whatever. And so I think everybody has to relate to these in different ways and figure out what works best for them in that. But that's just part of the game. Even though you might have not gotten a bunch of new people on your wait list, was this a reel that translated to more followers? Some, like it definitely got me more follows, but like for 2.2 million, did it get me so much more than one that got 10K or 15K? Not really, right? Because it just wasn't that related to business either, but also that's why it went viral. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a thing. Like when I'm talking to just business coaches, there just is a smaller amount of them, let's be real, or just coaches rather. Like I think I talked about this on another live stream. There just is a smaller amount of that group. There's something like 40,000 certified coaches. I know a lot of people aren't certified, but you get what I mean, right? And so part of the virality is that it has to extend beyond that. Okay, so next one that I will show you. Okay, this one was oh, you know what? That's an open where I wanted it to. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's see if that works. This one was interesting. We got quite a lot of, we got quite a bit of comments on here We got, quite a few likes. We got a ton of saves and shares. And this one was interesting because it really spoke to my ideal client without speaking to them directly about business. Right. So my ideal client, hold on, sorry. I'm like, I have this open in so many places now. Okay, there we go. So my ideal client, right, is someone who is busy and who has, some resources and is thinking about like, what can I do with those? How do I not feel so scattered? How can I, continue to like be supported as I scale, et cetera. So this really spoke to them, right? And I think I even said at the beginning of this video, like, this is for a very niche audience. If this is not you, move along. But this is something that I think does really, really well. When you're like, what is something my ideal client like has a problem with or like needs some permission around or whatever, that's like tangentially related to what I'm talking about, but isn't like fully the thing. Sometimes that's like a really beautiful way to connect. I had so much feedback, so many people in my DMs, so many people asking more, so many people being like, hey, can you send me that list, et cetera, et cetera. Like it really created a ton of conversation and connection point for me. So I feel like when we say value content is dead, or when we hear that a lot, what I take that to mean is the way we used to do value content is dead, meaning like, here are 4 tips to scale your business this week. Yes, nobody likes that anymore. I get it. But this is still me giving like value that connects to their life, right? It's just in a different way. It's sharing more personally. It's sharing through my own experience. It's not always hitting them over the head with the business thing, but sometimes being willing to share something that is related and supportive of that. And so I just think this one is such a good example of like, it's not like anyone doesn't want value from you. Like if they're coming to your page, they want to get something out of it, right? Like if we're consuming content, sorry, it is hot as crap in my office and I'm trying to, I'm trying to turn it down, but it won't work. Okay, now I just have to text my husband and tell him to do it. Sorry guys. Hi, I'm on a live and the Nest won't work and I'm sweating. Can you please turn down the temperature in my office? Okay. Thank you for sticking with me. Okay. So this one I just think is a perfect example. Save me, Kenny, literally. Like I can't. Been trying to do more of that as well. Yes, the student loans one did the same thing, right? Talking about what you're doing with those resources, how you're supporting others. Like there really are these kind of like roundabout ways, right? And I wouldn't say that I thought about it so intentionally, like what's the roundabout way that I can connect with right? Like, but I'm more just like, okay, this is a thing that I'm dealing with a lot. This is the thing I'm talking to clients about. How do I make this part of the content instead of being like, well, I only talk about business, right? Okay, so let's do another one. Okay. So this one worked for a lot of reasons. Um, and I actually ended up boosting it afterwards. So that's something I would do because I got so many opt-ins, right? So I was like, oh, this is great. I could just boost this. So it performed super, super well. And then when I saw that it was performing super, super well, after a few days, I was like, oh, why not boost this and try it out? And that really worked well. So something that was really relevant here is one, it was a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a trendy thing, right? Like the calling the universe to dot to dot was like definitely like an alive trend at that time. And I do think those do really well. People like to see the different versions of those or they're scrolling through some. And I think what was so great about this is again, it like offers value while having that kind of like funny, engaging, edge to it. And again, this is where I take back to like, is value content dead? No, right? People still want to learn from you and get value from you. We just have to find different ways to do that. So instead of me doing a reel where I'm like, here's how to implement the plan and doing something kind of like quick and funny like this and having them comment for it is more of what's working right now. And it gave me something I could do with that too. So like, I love that, like, I'm not like gonna run a whole ads campaign right now. That doesn't make sense for my business, but I can go throw $50 behind this and probably get some more opt-ins and have people seeing more value from me. Like it kills so many birds with the same stone, you know? Okay, this one I won't even show you because, well, I wonder if I could just, let me just see if I can do this here. This might be easier. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to highlight, here we go, is all the Taylor Swift content. That's like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. This one. All the Taylor Swift content did really, really well. So this is when Sarah and I went to the Eras tour. That's why I'm saying Taylor Swift content, but we're gonna like bucket that. All of that performed super, super well. And I think, you know, in some ways it's pretty obvious. Like people love the vibes. Like I think we were both like just so excited. Like that was like probably the most fun I had last year. I think you could really like feed off those vibes. I don't think I always share a ton of like my personal life and experiences in real time like that a lot. So I think my audience felt like they were getting like a different view. And two, like it's just like fun. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, oh, that's so fun, or like, oh, I would love to be there. What's your experience with boosting, the impact it has? Michelle, same thing. Did you see? I don't boost a lot, to be honest. Like I boosted that one because I felt like it made sense because they were opting into something else there. And I felt like if it reached new people, that would be a really quick way for them to feel super connected to me. So I wouldn't say that that's something I do super regularly. But like for me, I'm like, okay, even if that got 3 people opting into my plan or something, like that would be probably worth it for me. But I don't have like exact data on that. I really didn't even track it, to be honest. I was just like, oh, this is an opt-in, it's performing really well, boost. And that's like all I did. But I do have clients that see good results on that because it feels like a more organic way to do it. And you're already getting results from that, you know? Um, like you've already proven that that reel works. Like I had proof that that reel worked. You know what I mean? Like it already had a ton of traction, a ton of social proof. There's almost no way it wasn't going to be a win to boost it. So that's what I did there. Okay. Let's see if we can go back here. Okay. So I might just, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's like a faster way to do this, but it's fine. But I have played with it here and there. And I do think like in general, certainly doesn't hurt. Okay. So this is another one that Sarah and I did that got a lot of traction. I feel like this was an important one to share because ultimately, like sharing your thoughts, your beliefs, your values, I feel like is something people get really freaked out about. The heat in the room is great. Like I can feel the air blowing on me now. It's amazing. How often are you reviewing posts? Look at the reach and engagement. I'll answer that in 1 second. So this one I just really wanted to point out, like, again, lots of comments, did super well. Why? Because we're sharing like where we were, you know, we're not being unclear about that. And I feel like that really creates safety for people, even if you're like on the other side of the fence on that. Like maybe you're not liking it, but maybe it just feels clear. You know what I mean? Like maybe you're like, okay, that at least feels clear on where someone stands. And I think it got a ton of views and support for that reason. I also think a lot of people in our industry this year, for whatever reason, were not sharing their views or vibes. I'm not saying anyone has to, but I think that set this apart is kind of what I wanted to say there. I don't think that like it was very popular this year to share where you lean politically for whatever reason. And so I think having someone do that is compelling. How often do I review posts to look at reach engagement? I mean, I would say I literally look at it every time I post something on a more macro scale of like what's working, what's not working, etc. I would say maybe once a month. I can't help it anymore, but I give a fucks are on vacation in 2025, the same. Like, and also I just feel like I don't like I'm not saying I would never even have a client that like had different views than me. That's not my point. But like, if you are too uncomfortable with my views to work with me, like you should know that too. Like, let's just be open about that. Again, not saying that that's right for every business, but for me, in terms of like deep one-on-one coaching and support, like I don't necessarily need you to share my exact views. But if you seeing my views makes you feel unsafe or uncomfortable with me, then honestly, like, let's not do it. You know what I mean? So I really do try to lead with that. And again, I think it does stand out. So that may or may not be right for you, but it does, I think, like stand out when a lot of people aren't doing that. Like Felicia said, it was so different this election cycle, which I really agree with. Okay. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. All right, I'm gonna try to open this next one. Let me just see here. I feel like it might be faster if I'm not trying to copy and paste everyone and I'm just like showing you some. Um, okay, so this is another one that I think did really well. Yeah, this is better because then I can just hover. Okay, 360 like 60 comments. It got a ton of shares, saves, all that kind of stuff. I like this one's interesting to see these two side by side, right? So this one technically got more views, 26.7, 170 likes, 26 comments. This one, 12.2K, but 360 and 60 comments. And I will say, like, shares and saves on this one were a lot higher. So sometimes you just don't know, right? Like both of these did well, for all intents and purposes. But this one I feel like is a meaningful mention because all I did was talk about something I saw on TikTok. Right? It was basically like, here's TikTok, this thing on TikTok, like, um, like that I did. I recorded myself doing it, recommend. I think that we think content has to be so much more complicated than that. And I feel like this was just such a good reminder that it doesn't. Like, it absolutely does not have to be that complicated to get a really good result. And I think that, again, I'll go back to that idea of like, it's still giving value, but it feels like I'm sharing a tip with my girlfriend. Like, it feels like I would text Sarah this and I would be like, oh my God, I saw this thing on TikTok. You should do it. It's so great. Right. So it's just a different way of doing it. Like, I want my audience to get the value from it, but it's not this like, I am perfect and on a pedestal. It's like, oh, I heard this thing. I'm going to try it. Let's try it together, kind of. And I think that's really different. I just wanted to name that because um, I think that we often don't give ourselves permission for it to be that easy. And I often think that we feel like we're supposed to be on this pedestal. And I feel like this one is like a really good example of like not having to do that. Um, okay, let me switch back over here and see what y'all have to say. Okay, I feel like my big takeaway is that so many of these that have done well are like of the moment conversations. I think that's very true too. They're like trendy in the moment kind of stuff. And I think that is what's harder about content right now, just to be perfectly honest with you. I used to have content done a month in advance. I never have content done in a month in advance right now because it doesn't perform as well. I used to feel like it would perform just as well if it was done a month in advance. I feel like now that's less likely. I'm not saying it never can, but I do think a lot of these that are a little bit more like, the plan at that time of year, or the ChatGPT thing when that was blowing up, or the calling the universe one, like it really does help to have some of those like relevant trendy things behind you. Like I feel like a lot of the ones that are blowing up right now that you've seen like everywhere is that like I had met my younger self for coffee, right? Um, that one's doing super well right now. It's so trendy. It's so of the moment. It's so relevant. People want to see everyone's different version of that. Like, and it's just so easy to like run with that. And again, I feel like sometimes you're like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. I actually might not do that one because it really, really is everywhere. But like in general, sometimes we're like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing, or I'm supposed to be like starting the trends instead of just going with the trends. Fuck that. Like, go with the trends. If you start one, great. But like that doesn't have to be the goal. Do you know what I mean? Emma said, how far in advance are you planning or batching? Like the week before. Hi, Alyssa. I'm so glad you're loving it. I personally need to do content as I get inspired. Hard for me to batch. Yeah, I mean, that's great because it works so well with you right now, right? Loved the younger self one. I would have done it without sharing it because it was such, oops. Oh my gosh, sorry. Hold on, it disappeared. Because it's such a heart opener. I love that. I love some of the trends that I found that my audience generally is not with the trends and it doesn't tend to appreciate them half as much as I do. And that totally could be too. Like, again, you can kind of see, I mean, and I also think, again, it matters who you're trying to get. Like, that younger self one, for example, if you're a coach or whatever, is a really, really appealing one because it's almost like showcasing transformation and your own transformation. And so the people seeing that, even from like a trend perspective, the people that might be scrolling that trend might naturally be more likely to want coaching as an example. So I think it's just helpful to see some of those things, just like the calling the universe to make sure blah, blah, blah one obviously is relevant to my audience in a way that maybe it wouldn't be relevant to like every audience, where we like talk about like, manifestation, making an order to the universe, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that that also matters a ton. Okay, let's see. I want to move on to some other stuff, but let me just see. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here that I was gonna also share. Okay, this one was great. This one feels important to share for a similar reason. Okay. Oh, I should have just shown it to you here again. Sorry. Okay, this was this one. So we got a lot of comments, a lot of likes, a lot of views. And I said, like, I don't know what goals you accomplished this week, but I had a massage and I actually told her I wanted the table warmer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that one is so interesting because it's kind of that same thing that we've been talking about. I spoke to my ideal client in a super specific way. It was very personal to me, right? And it was like related to business, but I wasn't like, here's something I did in business this week that I'm proud of or whatever. And I really feel like what I noticed in going through these is those are the ones that are really popping, where it's like so related to who we are and how we show up in our identity and all of those things. But we're not like knocking them over the head with like 20 million business concepts every single day. Because I do think that that's when like it gets old. Um, okay, let me see here. Um, this one did really well. It was very identity affirming, seeing a lot of likes, a lot of comments. Call me crazy, but I refuse to get up at the crack of dawn. Try to squeeze in 3 minutes of self-care, blah, blah, blah. Very identity affirming. I don't want this. I am not this person. Like, I refuse to do all of this shit that like the traditional corporate world makes me do. Immediate connection with my audience. I feel the same way. That's why I started this. Yes, me too. Like all of that kind of stuff, right? That just makes it click. Um, let's see. Oh, this one was another one I wanted to share. This one did really well. Got um 81,000, almost 1,000, a little over 900. And I said, Oprah once said her weight was her apology to the world for her success. For many high achieving women, their tendency to overwork is theirs. Again, all of this is so similar. So it's helpful to see. And again, this is my audience, doesn't have to be yours, but it's like these identity things, right? Like high achieving woman tends to overwork without being like, if you're overworking, you suck or da, 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 like all of this kind of like shamey stuff. It's more like an identity conversation. It's something that's easy for people to engage with. It's something that makes them think a little bit deeper. It is value, but it's not hitting them over the head with the value. It's something that they can reach out to me around or connect to me around, start a conversation with me around. It doesn't like identify them as someone who's struggling also. Like that's always important for my audience. Like they don't want to comment on shit that like makes it seem like they're like really, really, really struggling. Like they don't want that, right? Do you have thoughts on reels versus carousels? I've seen that trend done with both. I have carousel ones pulled up, Emma, so I'm going to go through those. But my overall thought is what I typically see with carousels is they tend to perform better with your current audience and get less reach. For a reel, like they're a way to go deeper with your current audience is how I treat them. Like I'm typically not making a carousel thinking I want big reach on this. I'm typically making a carousel going, I really want to connect with my audience. And I'm using reels for more reach because I think that typically works better. Um, oh, Michelle said, what did Michelle say? I'm loving the Valentine's trend, themed Valentine's trend right now. Oh, I don't know if I know that one. I'll have to go look. Felicia said, it seems like a lot of here's my life type of content which resonates. I see what you're saying, that it's less about business. It's so interesting to see that shift on social. It feels more influencery. What do you think? I think you could call it influencery, but I think what it is, in my opinion, is what's resonating is something ChatGPT couldn't write, right? Like for ChatGPT to write that Oprah hook, like maybe it could, but it would have taken me feeding it so much information and giving it so much context and somehow it knowing that story and somehow like right where a lot of the old stuff we used to do, like here are 5 ways to growing your business this week. ChatGPT could write that in 5 seconds. Like we're over that. And so for me, I think it's less like we have to be influencers. And I think it's a lot more to do with like this pushback in some ways against AI, not pushback like we're not using AI, but like I don't just want to be fed ChatGPT content, I think is like the vibe from people. It just feels less interesting. Like I could go into ChatGPT and be like, what are 5 ways I can grow my business this week? And it would tell me. So to see someone else like put that on a graphic, it's like less exciting, right? Yeah, tinfoil hat time. I think there's something going on too, algorithm wise, IG not pushing very direct business content as much. I get tinfoil hat now. Yeah, yeah. I thought it was so interesting when I don't even know how you say his name, Moseri. So that likes were most important with your followers right now and shares were more important with non-followers to the algorithm, right? I appreciate that they're making these videos trying to bust some of the algorithm myths. And of course it benefits them too. Exactly. Thank you, Felicia. Yeah, yeah. I do think that's important. And I even noticed that with myself, like when I even pay attention to what I like to consume, it's something that feels deeply personal, a really specific emotional tie, more about someone's life, et cetera, because it's just what you can't get anywhere else still. Do you know what I mean? Where you can get most everything else. I mean, from ChatGPT, I even think that's why like courses are going to be impacted and stuff moving forward, because it's what can I give you that ChatGPT can? That's a thing we all need to be thinking about. Okay, what else do I have? Let me see. Well, maybe we should jump to carousels. Let's do that. Um, let us do that. Okay, hold on. I need to like move things. Okay, I'm going to share this one. Okay, this one was the most transformative question I've ever asked myself or my clients. Again, I would say I'm thinking about carousel as more like, how do I go deep with my audience? Would I have used that hook if I was trying to get a much broader reach? Probably not. Like, this is assuming you care about me, you know me as a business coach, whatever. So I think this one worked super well. I feel like this is one of the better carousels I've ever done because it was super in depth, but I also made it super valuable and super personal. It's hard to nail all of those at one time. That's probably why this is like my shining star, because I kind of somehow did it here. But I was talking about like my own transformation. I was giving them really valuable questions to save and journal on. Um, these I even said, like, you might want to save this and go journal on these. I think people really liked that. Then I told my own story here. When did everything shift for me? And so it's kind of this like blend of like, hey, this is like something really, really valuable for you. Here's how it's impacted me. And it was really tied to like something they want. So I feel like that one was very intriguing as a carousel. And again, also very relevant to people that already knew me, like my ideal client in that way. This one, let's see. Another one that did really well that I was actually kind of surprised it did quite as well. But also it makes sense, but I'll tell you why, is this one. My income is going down this year. Here's why. Obviously, it's like a very compelling hook. So that helps. But again, if you think about that, like the angle is very much towards like someone that already knows me, follows me, and would somehow care about that, you know? And basically what I talked about is why? Because I have pregnant clients, they take maternity leave, blah, 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 blah. again, like relevant to business, but not like it's interesting for people because they're thinking about like, oh, what's my maternity leave policy in my business or whatever. I mean, there's value in that, but also interesting because one, it's like a thing most people aren't going to admit. And two, the income going down. And two, I think, it's easy to be like, oh, that's a value stance and to really connect with someone's values in that way. Um, I love to consume content around conversations that I'm not having in my current life, like my obsession with romantic books. That's a great one, Michelle. I think that's a really good way to think about it. Just so you know, this is really fun with more videos like this along with your just chat ones. Okay, good. I'm so glad, Chrissy. This was like my vision. I was like, I want to screen share. I want to break them down. I want to pull them apart. I want to talk about them. So, okay, if you guys like this, maybe we'll do one like this every quarter or something. So anyway, this one I actually felt like did super, super well. And you can see a lot of the comments are actually really long, which is telling to me too, like this really struck a chord. And again, it's like these business, but tangential business related topics that I feel like are performing super well. Oh, this one, this one was a thing. Let us talk about this one. This one, this post probably, I would say, like, I think y'all are going to think this is really funny. I think this was the single most client generating carousel I posted last year. I can literally think of several people that ended up getting an intensive with me and or applied to be one-on-one clients that specifically reference this post. I can think of one of my current clients who like what I'm trying to think of her timeline. Was she a current client when I wrote this, or was she about to be a client? I guess she had to have already been a client, but like she has been really like, this is why I love working with you because you get this. This is why I'm re-signing with you because you get this. So like honestly, I was not expecting it to be as popular as it was. It was just something that was like really on my brain at that moment. But I think what's so interesting about this one is that our industry tends to talk a lot about this idea of like retiring your spouse and that being like a pretty hot topic of conversation. Oh, let's see. Yeah, people love behind the scenes business information. Totally. So I think people like in our industry talk a lot about the like retiring your spouse thing. And I think that when I kind of openly said, like, that's not my goal, that's never been my goal. In fact, it's sort of the opposite. My business kind of revolves around my husband. Um, I think people just felt so seen and maybe like so much permission. And I also just think sometimes saying the different thing is really attractive. So, like, if everybody's saying this and you're saying this, it's going to get some attention. Um, and I feel like a lot of people were just like, oh, you get it. Because I've worked with, this is what I've heard, like in some of the outreach. I've worked with coaches who, their husband doesn't do this or their husband works in their business. And so they don't understand like when I have really strict things I can't do, or when I have certain boundaries, or when what it's like to be in a dynamic where we're both juggling two really big things versus the business being the only big thing in our lives, et cetera. And so I just feel like it struck a chord of like, it's kind of the same thing with that house manager thing of like, this impacts the business so much. And I get it, right? Like the house manager thing, like having good support around you impacts the business so much. And I get it. So I just feel like this has been really helpful for me to see. Like, I don't know how many more ideas I have under my belt in this. I'm sure I'll come up with more, but I'm like, this is what people are kind of wanting. It is that behind the scenes info. It's also some personal storytelling. And it also feels like really relevant to like where they might be or what they might feel maybe even misunderstood around. So this one, I think by far was best performing in terms of people like directly reaching out and being like, you are the coach for me because of this. I'm staying with you because of this. I'm working with you because of this. Thank you for getting this. Like it was a real lightning rod last year. So that, feels relevant. Hey Nova. Okay, good. I'm so glad it's helpful. All right, let's see what else I got. Okay, we didn't even do bad ones yet. Oh shoot. Okay. We're gonna stop with carousels. We need to get to bad ones. Okay, let's look at the bad ones. Okay, this one I'm like, look at how great I am at all this performing. Let's talk about how this sucked. Okay, this one did terrible. And this one I did as a test. So I won't talk about this one for too long, but I just was having this conversation with a client. I was like, I'm going to do this test and point it out. Like, I just talked about 7-figure business owners. I didn't even name myself as one. I kept it very not personal. I talked about them and what they want to do. And I talked kind of the person reading this, not like with them. And it just did really shitty. Like, and when I say really shitty, I mean 66 people like it. It's not like the end of the world, but like as compared to like my other content, this was like by far one of my least performing ones. And I think it's just so helpful to say that, of like, this is not what people want. ChatGPT could have written this. And it's not what's landing. Like, they want so much more than that. Okay, this one also did really bad, and I have thoughts on this one. Okay, so this one was like, I'm not being overly dramatic when I say that I'd rather sit naked on a hot grill than explain my career at a family dinner. Okay, here's a couple things wrong with this one. I'm trying to make a joke. This was like right before Thanksgiving. Like, I'm trying to make a joke about having to go to Thanksgiving dinner, and like, people think that you like look at cat videos on social instead of like have a real business there. I actually think that concept would have been quite resonant with my people, but one, it was way too long, I think, to get to that point. And two, like, you just couldn't even read that quick enough. But like, it's also not compelling enough to stay through multiple cycles and try to read it multiple times. So this one I actually think is a really good example of, sometimes it's just the structure and how it's set up. Sometimes it's like a little too long. Sometimes it wasn't worth it enough. Sometimes it wasn't good at capturing attention. Like, I actually think that point would have still been very resonant with my audience. Like, I don't think I have to assume that I had the wrong message there, but I think the delivery was definitely incorrect here. And I think it's helpful to see that. Like, sometimes, yes, we need to adjust our message. Sometimes our delivery, as it relates to like the reel and the quickness or the slowness or the length or the whatever, really has a major impact. It just does. Okay. Oh, this one. Let's see. Okay. Okay. This one did terrible too. Again, so like, when I say terrible, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's all relative, but just for the purposes of like what didn't work. This was so me talking at you business heavy. I was basically like, talking about completion rates. And I was saying like, here's what you're doing wrong with completion rates, blah, 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 blah. It's not it. It's not something people want to engage with. This is not something that they want to hear about when they're scrolling at 9:30 at night. Like, this is far too teachy. This would have been much more appropriate for like a live stream like this, where you're like, I'm coming for a business training, versus on Instagram. See, I'm like, want better completion retention rates, stop doing this. Like, it feels jarring almost, right? It's like not what we're wanting. Even though like I might want my completion rates to be better, I don't think this type of content is performing that well. Okay. The reflection on the data is so helpful. I feel like thinking, why might this not have done well, can be such a game changer. Exactly. And sometimes it's a small tweak that makes all the difference. Exactly. I think that's true. I think a lot of times it's a small tweak. Okay, so that one sucked. Oh, this one, let me show you this one. This one is interesting because I thought for sure this one would perform really well. I loved this one. When this one did bad, I sent it to Sarah, my best friend, and I was like, why did this one do bad? Like, think through this with me. I loved this one. And what we kind of determined is like, one, there's just way too much wording on the page. And then there's way too much going on. Like, there's too many things at once. So it's like on fast forward or whatever it is, on time lapse. There's so much going on. There's so many words. It's moving really quick. I'd have to rewatch it a million times, but I'm moving so fast in it. And so again, I actually think that the content on here is good. Maybe I should even take it and throw it in a carousel or something like that. Note to self. But the delivery was not it. Like the everything with the delivery here was not it. And it's again, it's just helpful to remember these things where I was like, this one's so good. This one's gonna pop, this one's gonna get shared, people are gonna love this. It's okay. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but when you can really step back from it, or again, sometimes you have to ask someone else. Like on this one, I was kind of attached to it. So I had to say to Sarah, tell me what happened here. I literally texted her this one and was like, hello, what happened? And that's just okay. Sometimes again, like sometimes it's not the exact thing. It's like there's more to it. Yeah, exactly. Christy said it perfectly, overstimulating. So if I wanted to try this concept again, I would put less words on there. Like I would really shorten up what I was saying. Like, here, like I said at the beginning, you can imagine your first client, then you get one and another, and suddenly I would probably try to make that super short. At the beginning, you can't even imagine getting your first client, then suddenly you have a real business. Like I would try to take away a lot of that, whatever, and I would make the background so much more chill, so much less quick and da, 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 da. Especially if I was going to put a lot of words on it. Um, that is always the saddest when you're so excited to share one with people, but the excitement isn't echoed back. Yeah. In fact, today, my reel today, I bet you was going to be one of my least performing ones. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, it's not doing terrible, but it's not doing great. This will probably not perform well, to be honest. Like I just wanted to say this, but sometimes it's helpful to do that for yourself too. Actually, this is a good one to talk about. I just felt like I want to say this, and I know this is not what my people really want to like go share or comment on a ton or whatever. So I'm not going to make that wrong. And I'm also not going to like over try to produce it to like make sure it does well. Sometimes you just have to be like, this is for my very close circle. The people who get it are going to get it. I'm going to feel really good because I said it, and that's enough. So also know that that's okay too. Like the goal isn't that everyone should like knock it out of the fucking park. Sometimes you're like, I just feel like saying this. Like me talking about like hiring a coach from trauma and like a coach is being bullies and da da da. Like that's not feel good Instagram content. That's not like the lighthearted, like ChatGPT showed me a vision for my life. Like, let's be real, it's not as exciting or engaging or fun. It doesn't necessarily leave the best taste in your mouth. So I wouldn't do these all the time because I wouldn't necessarily want to like tank my account in that way, but I'm allowed to do it if I want to do it, if I really have something to share. So like that's a good example too. Um, okay, let's see what else I had here. Oh, um, let me see. This one was funny because it's so bad. Okay. I did not nail the mindful and demure trend here. This is a really good example of like, I might have been making a good point that it just didn't fit the trend like at all. I just wanted to share that client screenshot. And so I like tried to wedge it into something that was not the right fit for it. And I feel like that happens a lot when we're trying to be super trendy. Like we don't want to be trendy at the sake of like what like they have to match up. So like that example I gave you of like calling the universe to confirm that I'm signed up for the whatever fit perfectly with sharing a planning thing for next year. Those aligned perfectly. I wasn't trying to like wedge it into something that didn't fit. This I definitely was. The demure and mindful trend was so much more like funny and sassy and like all of that. And that is not what I brought here. And so again, sometimes it's not the message, although it could be. Sometimes like you have to look at the other pieces. And I feel like this was a really good example of that. Love a good wedge. This is always the saddest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I may have missed, but did you share your viral nanny loans video? So expansive for me personally. Oh, thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. We talked about it briefly at the beginning. Yeah. Still better than not posting anything if you're feeling inspired. Exactly. Like sometimes you're gonna get it right, sometimes you're not. It's like really no big deal, but like it is just helpful. Like if you're like, oh, why didn't that one land? Should I not share client screenshots? Do people not like? No, I just missed the trend. Like that's why, you know. Um, okay, this one was helpful, I think, to show you because I think there's an important point here. Um, oh, okay, this one is so good. Let me show you this one. It's so good that it's because it's so bad. Okay, so this one, and I even tried to boost it. Okay, I probably put like $20 behind it or something. I don't even remember. I really like, do this very infrequently, but that's how bad it was that I boosted it and it only got 52 likes. Okay, let's say at most I put $40. I can't imagine that I would put more than that. Again, I don't remember, but I feel like if I was like, I'm going to put a $500 behind this, like I know I would remember that. There's no way I put like more than $40 behind this. But still, to have done that and still be at only 52 likes, I think I thought, well, this one is such a good client result thing. I mean, 199% increase in income, 61% increase in email list. Like, I want everyone to see this, like, boost that shit. Now, one theory, and I wish I could remember this, but I don't. One theory could be, did I boost it too soon? Like, did I post it and then boost it? I literally don't remember because this was in April. That could mess with it because it didn't get like the chance to pick up organically. But let's say I didn't. This is just like ChatGPT could have just written this. It feels totally impersonal. Now that I'm thinking about it, like if I was someone, I might be like kind of interested in this, but if I didn't even know you, I really wouldn't care. It's all boring. Like ChatGPT could have written this. I'm not storytelling. I'm not connecting. There's no image. There's no nothing. Like just flat. So I feel like this one is such a good example because it's like, even if you're someone who's getting clients results that are this amazing, which like objectively, those are fantastic results. It doesn't matter if you're not presenting it in a way that is like digestible or exciting. And so I feel like that is really, really helpful to name where it's like you like could have fantastic results and the frame is still going to be impactful. I feel like for some reason I would have connected more to this one if it had your face when scrolling. Yeah, totally. Like if there was an image behind it, if I had even shown the client's picture, I mean, obviously I was doing this anonymously, but like if I would have been more compelling in almost any way, it would have done better. Okay. So that's, of note. Okay, a couple more that I wanted to name that did super well since oh no, we don't have a second. Okay, I have to go. um, we'll stop for now. Let me stop sharing. Okay. So you get the point, I think. I feel like this is a helpful one. I mean, we can do another version of this. But like it's not always what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And I think how you're saying it in a way that is matching with the market and what people want to consume and what makes it easy for them to engage on, what makes them feel comfortable engaging on it, all that kind of stuff. And that great content does perform. Like I think that last one is a perfect example. It was not great content. And so even boosting it didn't help. Where the other one that I showed you that I boosted, it was already great content and already performing super, super well and already had a ton of social proof on it. So giving it a little boost, great. But like you have to get that organic piece right first, or it doesn't matter, And so really leaning into really nailing this part in your business if you want to be an online marketer in this way is so, so valuable. So I hope that helps. I'm so sorry it's so long. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Bye, y'all.